Good evening, everyone. Here we are at Greek Week 5, and we've got another exciting episode of Greek. And also, I'm looking forward very much, as I always do, to the Bible studies. I don't know if you get excited about using Greek in Bible study yet, but to me, it's where the real benefit and payoff comes in. And so we're going to have another nice time doing that. First of all, this evening, we're going to have a bit of a go at the homework we did last week, just to help reinforce what we went through with that. Now, I appreciate John hasn't got the homework because he hasn't got a copy of the textbook. So we will, what I might do is I might just take a photograph of most of it here and see if I can send it through on my phone to John, and then John can actually see what we're looking at anyway.
I had a lot of questions.
Okay. Well, I didn't write the homework questions, so it's not my errors this time, thankfully.
Well, yeah, so I don't know. I'm assuming it's my misunderstandings, but...
How do I get that out? Let's try that. Okay, so just give us a second, John, and I'll just shoot this through to you, and you can just work through that with us. Is it better on email or on phone for you, John?
Either's fine.
Which is best?
Either. Phone. Let's just go phone.
Okay, we'll try messages. I'm not very good at using phone.
Email. It will come to email, and messages will both come to my phone.
Yeah, is your phone number 04903?
Yeah, that's the one.
John. Okay. Hopefully you will get that presently. Okay, so let's go through that. It's page 33 in the book, and we'll just work through it as quickly as we can. And I'm going to try not to talk as much as possible, just to save my voice, because I'm going to get excited at the end of the lesson with the Bible study bit. Okay. So let's start working through that. Again, Dennis, if you'd like to start off, just read out the Greek. This is practice 3.2, page 33, and read out the Greek, then give us your translation.
Akuo to kurio.
Excellent.
That's one. Suppose that's the fourth.
What is akuo, first of all?
Sick?
No. Akuo is I hear, as in acoustics.
No.
What is kuryu?
That is the master, but then it's the master's voice or something like that.
Yeah, so how would you translate that?
I hear the master's voice.
Yep, I hear the Lord.
I hear the Lord.
Yes. Now, it's in the genitive case here with the tu kuryu, because of this little this little quirk of this one verb, and that is that where do they say? If you look just up before this translation bit, just in the paragraph above, it says akuo, I hear, comma, listen to, plus accusative of the thing heard, plus the genitive of the person heard. So here, this is why akuo is in the genitive. And what is probably happening here, this is me theorizing, not knowing anything about ancient history Greek, is that they're skipping out one little part of the sentence. I hear the voice of the Lord. And they just skip out the voice bit. I hear of the Lord, but I'm hearing the words of the Master of the Lord. I hear the Lord. But
Yeah. So I thought it should be I hear of the Lord
no.
because it's possessive.
This is correct what you're saying. It is the possessive, but there are one or two verbs in Greek and they just take an unusual case. It's probably for some of the reasons that I'm talking about there, that you can't actually hear a person. You're actually hearing the sounds that the person makes. So I hear the sound of that person. Okay? You can see a person, but you can't hear a person because a person isn't an audio wave. A person is a blob of cells. They're not a sound. They make sounds.
Yeah.
So, but yes, the same with pistuo. Pistuo, it takes a different case.
Yeah, that's why I
And more.
struggle with those ones.
So just don't worry too much about the case in the situation with these two verbs. You just translate it, I heard or I hear the Lord. Don't worry about it. And it's the same with believing too. I believe God, but it puts it in the indirect object. I believe in God is maybe a literal way of translating it. But anyway, we'll come back to that later. All right. So Sharon, number 2.
So that one says blepe ton angelon to theou. And I believe I got this one right. So it's she or he sees the angel of God.
Very good. Excellent. Number 3. She or he sees the angel of God. Thomas.
Pistionomen to Christo.
Good.
We believe Christ, or we believe
Yes.
Christ.
We believe Christ. Yes. So pistuomen to Christo. We believe Christ. And because pistuo, they've just been talking about these two verbs, akuo and pistuo, which have a slight quirkiness about the cases that follow them. Pistuo takes the dative for some reason. Okay, and John, I hope you have got that through by now for number 4.
Yeah, I've got it. So, what is it? Is it just pistuo and akuo? They just skip like a word that.
Yeah, no, they don't skip a word, but they just take funny cases that are just weird. Okay, but just ignore the cases, and you basically just see, oh, I hear, and whatever the case is, I hear God, or I believe God. But don't worry too much about that. Just
So in the book it says we have faith in the Messiah. So I know that means the same thing, but like, why do they say that? And we believe in the Christ.
Well, the answer is that in Greek there is no distinction between faith and belief. They are the same thing. And this is a bit of a hang up that English speaking people have. We go into all sorts of complicated definitional differences between faith and belief. But there is no difference. There are no two different words for faith and belief.
And is that the same with Christ and Messiah?
Yes, exactly the same.
Okay.
Well, not exactly the same. Messiah is a Hebrew word. Christ is the Greek translation of it. But
Okay.
it's exactly the same person, exactly the same thing. The Messiah is the Christ.
Yeah.
Same with faith and belief, exactly the same thing. You see, the problem is that English has been it has had influences from Latin, from French, from German. It has influences from Scandinavia. This is where English comes from. And so, and you have the native Anglo-Saxon language of the native English people from 1,000 years ago, before they were invaded by the French speaking. And so we have lots of doubles of words in English that are coming, one from the German side or the Anglo-Saxon side and one from the French. And what happened was, you had for a few hundred years in England after the Norman conquest, you had these two languages coexisting, the native language and the French conqueror's language. And so what did they do? If you were posh, you were able to use both for the same thing. So this is why English has got so much vocabulary, because you've got all these different languages that are giving us English words that have contributed to the stream, and they've all merged together. And so this is the situation with faith and belief. It is exactly the same thing. There aren't two different words for it in Greek.
Yeah,
cool. In the New Testament. Neither are there in Hebrew. You just have one word. But in English, we have lots of words for the one thing in some cases. And we'll see some other examples as we go on.
Thanks.
Okay, so John, number 4.
Yeah, right. Okay. Akoueta tous logus.
Yep.
So you hear the angels. You hear of the angels.
Where are you seeing angels there?
Oh, what am I saying? Right, I'm the other one. Yeah, the word. Sorry, not angels. Logus, the words.
Logus, the words. You hear the words. Good. Okay. Now we'll skip number 5. These English to Greek ones are much harder. Let's just keep on going over to halfway practice. Well, I think it'll take us 10 minutes to do these two, and I don't really want to spend 10 minutes on these two. Doing Greek to English is much easier than English to Greek, which is why they put them around the other way. So we'll skip that for the moment. Let's just go on to halfway practice. Who were we up to? Dennis, number 1 on halfway practice.
Omen, ton numon to theo.
Good. Ekomen ton nomon tu theou. Have a go at translating that.
Something, the name of God. I don't know what it's.
Ekomen comes from the verb echo. Echo is I have. I have. What is ekomen? We have. Good.
We have
now,
the name.
Nomen isn't name. Onoma is name. Nomos is the law. So Deuteronomy. Do you remember Deuteronomy means second law? Deuteronomy. So have a go at translating the whole sentence. Not sure. We have is ekomen, the law of God. To Theou is of God, belonging to God. We have the law of God. Okay, Sharon, number 2.
Okay, that's better. I'm unmuted. Is the first word we or oi?
Hoi.
Oi. Okay.
It's got a
Duloi.
rough.
Yeah, it's got the rough one. That's what I thought. Duloi la lucen to curio.
Good.
I had the slaves speak to the Lord,
Correct. That is the answer.
but the textbook says the slaves are speaking to the Lord.
Well, yes, in the present continuous tense, it can either be the slaves speak or it can be the slaves are speaking. Remember at the beginning, we learned that these verbs in the present, they can have this continuous sense of speaking.
Yeah.
I wouldn't think that, well, it could be either way. You would just have to look at the context in a Bible verse to see whether they're really friendly and so they're always chatty with their master, or whether they're a bit rebellious and they keep on talking to him. But normally it would be a one-off sort of situation. The slaves speak to the Lord. Normally in a slave master situation, the master would do the talking and they do the obeying.
Yeah.
So they're just reminding you in the answers that there are these possibilities, which we sometimes tend to forget after a while. We just go for the simplest possible definition.
True.
But these present continuous tense verbs, they can mean either.
Yeah, the textbook seems to like them.
Yeah, they're just trying to remind us because we tend to forget.
Yeah.
The alternative
Thanks.
translation. Okay, Dennis, number 3.
Would it be
It's my
Thomas or expect?
Sorry,
Yeah.
sorry, Thomas.
turn. Number 3, Zito, Ton, Oikon, to Christu.
Good.
I seek the house of Christ or of the Lord. Christ.
Very good. I seek the house of Christ. So the word the in there, to Christu, you could translate it in there, in which case it's functioning like I seek the house of the Messiah, but we don't use that terminology very much. So we don't say of the Christ very much in English. We just say of Christ. But so yeah, the to Christu there, it's a bit optional. Okay, good. Number 4, John.
Poieta arton tois adelphois. You plural make bread for the brothers.
Excellent. Okay, this is the indirect object, the dative plural, for the brothers. Poieta has that funny ending on it because it's an EW verb, poieo, and so the second person plural is poieta, and arton is bread. Good. Okay, Dennis, have a go at number 5. Read that one out and have a go at breaking it down one word at a time.
Ho-okolos, akue, ton, logon, to curio.
Good. And break it down into its individual parts in translation. What is ho?
The crowd,
The crowd. Very good.
yeah, the words
Akue.
the crowd hears the words of God, of Christ, of the Master,
Of the Lord. Okay.
of the Lord.
The
Yeah.
crowd hears the word, singular, ton logon, of the Lord or the Master, but normally ton logon, kurios in the New Testament is mostly the Lord, that is God or Christ. Sometimes it is referring to a servant's master, but that would be in the context. But mostly it's talking about the Lord Jesus in the Gospels when you hear about the Lord, particularly in Luke's Gospel. Sometimes God, but usually Christ. So we would say, the crowd hears the word of the Lord. And if it's quoting from the Old Testament, it's often the way that the New Testament talks about God. The Lord is talking about Jehovah. But anyway, so yeah, we would normally translate it Lord. Okay, Sharon, number 6.
So number 6 is blepe ton engelon kai akue tu angelu.
Good.
And it means the crowd, that he or she sees the angel and hears the angel.
Excellent. Very good. All right. Thomas, number 7.
7. Pistiu A to Huio to Theo.
Good. Pistue to huio tu theou.
He believes the Son of God.
Yes. Now, we're going to see in a little while at a few lessons that this is probably better translated as he believes in the Son of God. But the notes above, you see how in the third paragraph down from the top of this page, it says, for example. In the vocab in this chapter, you will see the word pistuo, which means I believe in, trust, or have faith in. And we're going to see why. And this is why we talk about it. When we're preaching the gospel, we say it's not simply enough to believe that there is a God. No, being saved involves believing in. In other words, putting your faith in. Now, the word in isn't in here, okay, but we're going to see in a little while why this word pistuo, in a few weeks' time, we're going to see why this word pistuo, it means to believe in something, okay? And we can see in the indirect object, the indirect object here is giving us a little, I can't really explain it all for you yet. We will get to it in a few weeks' time, why this indirect object, see how it goes into the dative? He believes to huio, indirect object, the dative case. This dative case often means in something, but we'll get to that later. So this is why when we're preaching the gospel, we're saying it's not simply enough to believe about God. It involves believing in. But anyway, we'll come to the more technical reason for this in a few weeks' time when we start learning about the prepositions. So the prepositions are words like in and to and above and some of these words. Anyway, we'll come to that later. Okay, John, number 8, and we'll finish with this here with number 8.
Okay. Ho adelphos lue dulon to curio.
Good.
The brother looses a slave from the Lord
Not from the Lord,
to the Lord.
to the Lord, or the dative is to or
For.
For.
for
For,
something.
not from. Yeah. For the Lord.
Yes. The brother looses a slave. There's no ton, dulon, it's just dulon. The brother looses a slave for the Lord.
What does it
Okay.
mean?
Any questions from any of this?
Yeah,
I
just
didn't
one quick
understand what
question.
that meant.
Oh, sorry. No, go with Thomas.
Sorry, Thomas?
I just said I didn't understand what that meant. A
You didn't
brother.
understand.
What do you mean a brother loses a slave for the Lord?
It's just a vocabulary exercise,
Oh.
Thomas. It's not a quote from the Bible, so they're just
But
throwing words.
But looses mean like let go. So kind of like, unties or lets them
Yeah.
free, whatever I interpret it as.
Sets free. Yep.
I know we're not doing the ones where you had to change from Greek to English, but
Yep.
the last one says you speak to the crowd, and I use the word lale, but they
Yes.
use the word for say instead of speak. Are they interchangeable?
They are slightly interchangeable. In other words, speaking and saying are very, very similar things.
Yeah.
But actually, in Greek, I have never really seen them really switch over. In other words, what I mean is, wherever we would say speak, they say lale, lalo.
That's what I had, and I was
Wherever we use the word say, they use Lego. So
Yeah.
that's not very good the way they've translated that in the back
yeah,
of the book.
okay, cool. Thank you.
Okay. Yeah. You speak is lales.
Yeah, that's what I put, and I was like, what?
Yeah.
Cool.
So
Thank you.
it's an interesting one. It's a funny thing that Greek and English are very similar in the usage of these two words, to say and to speak. I don't know why, because in lots of ways they have differences, but in these two words, very similar. So wherever you see the word speak, you virtually always in the New Testament, I have never seen an exception, you use laleo. Wherever you see the word say, it's always lego. It's a curiosity of language. There's no fixed rules. You can make words mean whatever you want them to. Okay? In a sense, language is making up sounds and attributing them to things. But in this case, the very, very close correlation between English and Greek. All right, let's move on and have a look at the lesson for today, and that is about neuter nouns. And I'm going to bring it up on the screen for you. And I'm going to get you guys to read it out for me to spare my voice. Okay, so there's a table with all the forms of the neuter noun, and we're looking at the word for work here, which is ergon. Those of you who have done physics at school, you will have seen this Greek word coming out a bit. I think there was a unit of measurement called ergs or something like that. I can't remember now. It's such a long time since I did physics. And here's the basic thing to remember about
I don't think we have this, do we?
No? Okay, let me just check on the email. Here we go. Send. Greek class exercise homework. Greek vocabulary. Greek class exercise 5-6. Homework. Class exercise. Vocabulary. Oh, that's strange. I thought I only had to send you through 5 documents. It looks like I've got to send you through another one. Thank you, Thomas. Sorry. I thought with 5 documents I was sorted. I didn't keep on looking. There's a 6th document. Tim, Jonathan Hickson, Sharon, Dennis, John, Thomas. All right. Okay, that hopefully should get through to you in a second. I apologize. I count up my documents as I send them through on the email, and I once I get to 5, I think I've sent them all. They all look very similar with the PDF things on them. That come through now, Thomas?
Yep, that's right. Thanks.
Okay. So here's the thing with neuter nouns. Neuter nouns are very good because they're virtually identical to masculine nouns. Okay? You can see that the accusative case and the genitive case and the dative case are identical in the singular, and the genitive and the dative in the plural, they're identical too. So we have ergon, ergu, ergo, and in the plural we have ergon, ergois. The endings are identical to your masculine nouns. Hip, hip, hooray, very good. The only thing that distinguishes, they want to have a little bit of point of difference, okay? And the point of difference is this, that neuter nouns, the nominative and accusative are identical. So you notice in the singular it's ergon, ergon, and in the plural it's erga, erga. Okay? All right. So they are virtually identical to masculine nouns, which is very helpful. And so don't worry, don't stress too much about the endings of them at the moment. Okay, now I'm going to get some of you to read these paragraphs just to give my voice a rest. Let's go. Dennis, would you mind reading this first bullet point paragraph for us?
Nouns in Greek may be masculine, feminine, or neuter, but these do not necessarily refer to biological gender. Instead, gender is a grammatical category. It means it refers more to the form, particularly the ending of a word. Thus, logos, word, is masculine, as are other words ending in os, while agape,
Yep.
Agape, love is feminine. So are other words ending in eta. Yeah. And neuter words end in on.
Good. Next paragraph, Sharon.
Neuter nouns are quite similar in their endings to masculine nouns. Their genitive and dative forms are identical to masculine forms. The nominative and accusative forms of neuter nouns are the same as each other in singular and plural. See the table above. Singular, ergon, ergon, plural, erga, and erga. Context is used to tell whether a neuter noun is a subject or object, nominative or accusative.
Very good. And then Thomas, the third paragraph there.
The neuter article the follows the neuter noun pattern very closely, except that the singular, nominative, and accusative forms are to instead of ton. For beginners, this helpfully distinguishes neuter nouns from masculine nouns. Example: to, den, drawn is a neuter noun. If it was masculine accusative, it would be ton, den, drawn.
Okay. Anyone guess what dendron is? What is a dendron? This word is used in some medical terms a lot. If you've done any medical studies, they use Greek words all the time. Dendron means tree. And so you'll get, because of a tree has a branching pattern like this, you'll have things even in other sciences that will talk about
Dendrites.
Sorry, Thomas?
We have dendrites in science.
Yep.
Branching.
So, yes. So, tot dendron, it shows you that this is not the accusative of a masculine noun. The to means that this is a neuter noun, and If it was a masculine noun, it would be ton den dron. Okay, and then final paragraph, John, please.
Neuter nouns have one peculiarity. Neuter plural nouns take a singular verb. Thus, the children keep the law is ta tekna tire ton nomon, and not ta tekna tirusin ton nomon.
Okay, now this
Ah.
is the ultimate trick question in Greek. Okay, so for example, if you ever went to Bible college and you said, listen, I don't want to do Greek because I already know Greek. Could I please sit a test? And they might have some tests like that. Honestly, some of them do. If you ever get a test in Greek, not from me, but from some other educational institution, this is the trick question they will throw at you. They will get you to write out a sentence involving a neuter plural noun. And anyone who is really familiar with Greek, and even those people who aren't, even those people who are familiar with Greek, this is a very, very good trick question for people. You've got to remember that when you use a neuter plural word, that it takes a singular verb, which is contrary to the rules of grammar. Normally, if you're speaking about plurals like the children, you say they keep, but instead it's the children, he keeps the law. The form teri is a singular, whereas normally the constant rule in Greek is that plural nouns take the plural verb forms. So this is the big trick. Now, here's another good thing about neuter nouns. There's lots of good things about neuter nouns. Neuter nouns are your friends, not your enemy, just like Omicron is your friend, not your enemy. Neuter plural nouns are good because, number one, they are very similar to masculine nouns. Number two, the other thing that's good about them is that there aren't really oodles of them. Most nouns in Greek are masculine and feminine. Neuter nouns are the third group, and they're a minority. There aren't really, you only have to learn probably about 20 neuter nouns, and you have got virtually the whole New Testament neuter nouns covered. And there are ones that occur quite a lot, like children or trees. But there aren't oodles of them. But there are oodles, believe me, there are oodles of masculine and feminine nouns that you've got to remember. So neuter nouns are good. And they're not hard to remember. Once you learn the vocabulary, most of the neuter nouns are quite long words as well, so they're distinctive. And you don't even have to worry about their endings very much, because most of the time they're masculine, similar to the masculine endings. And you can just tell from a context what's the subject and what's the verb in a sentence, and what's the object, etc. So even their endings don't really bother you too much. If you're familiar with the Bible passage you're reading in English and you're reading it in Greek, you know the storyline pretty well, and you don't even need to worry about the endings of them. You just see dendra and you think tree, and you're just moving on, okay? Normally trees aren't doing the action anyway, and this is true for a lot of neuter nouns. Mostly neuter nouns are not active people doing things, okay? Okay, a child is, but neuter nouns are usually neutral objects that are having things done to them, okay? So the nominative is pretty rare for neuter nouns. And the accusative case, well, in the singular, the accusative case in the singular is identical to your masculine, as is the genitive, as is the dative. So you don't need to learn anything new. So neuter nouns are your friend. And here on the vocabulary, we have got we've got some of the most common, and there aren't a huge lot of them. There's only about 10 neuter nouns in the top 100 Greek words in the New Testament. So they're pretty rare. They're not a big fish. Okay, the article the, it mostly again follows the masculine article, and it rhymes with the neuter ending. So ta, ga in the plural, it just follows the neuter noun. The works, ta, ga, to, ergu, of the work, to, ergo, of the work. And it does have this peculiarity that in the singular, it's to, ergon, to, ergon. But again, the best way to get used to these neuter nouns is just to translate. Don't try so much to memorize all these endings. Just work hard at exercises using your books. Work hard at the homework and try and do the extra exercises even in the homework book, in addition to the ones I give you. Normally, I'll give you my own separate homework, and there'll be extra exercises in the book. And it's by working at these, not memorizing them in your head, all these endings, but working at the homework exercises, that you'll get more familiar with the endings. Any questions about neuter nouns from any of that? No? Neuter nouns, they're good. They're not bad Greek things, and there are sadly some bad Greek things. Neuter nouns are good. All right, so yeah, just work hard at the exercises, as well as tuning in every week and doing the exercises in class, which is what we're going to do now. Let's have a go. You can open up your vocabulary sheet. Let's go through the vocabulary sheet first of all. Now this week I have put vocabulary lesson 5 and 6 on the one sheet, so you'll have to fish it out again next week. But we've only got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 words to remember this week. That's all. So that's some of the most common, 8 common neuter words. There's not that many of them in the New Testament, okay? And most of them occur quite a lot. Okay, so let's just read through these just for practice reading. It'll help us remember them a little bit. Dennis, if you could start off, just read the first column there on the vocabulary and then read out the English translation.
Daimon, daimonion.
Correct. Sounds pretty much like the English translation, which is demon. Daimonion. Okay, good. And in fact, that little iota there, daimonion, that is a diminutive in some cases. In some other cases, it's not. So we'll just ignore it. Demon, daimonion. Okay, so a diminutive is a little form of a little child. Okay, but in this case, I don't think it is. All right, Sharon. Next one.
Ergon,
Yep, and it means
work.
good.
Like ergonomic.
That's true. Thomas, the next one.
Euangelion.
Euangelion. Very good. And it means
Gospel.
gospel or good news. It's actually 2 words here put together. Eu means good and angelion means message. All right, John.
That is hieron, means temple.
Yes. So a hierarchy, we talk about hierarchies. Literally, it comes from sort of shall we say, ranks of priesthoods, okay? You'll have your chief priest. He's at the top of the hierarchy. He's the top of the rule of the priests. Then you've got lesser priests. That's where we get the word hierarchy from. And hieron means the temple. Hierus means a priest. We're going to come to that later on. Hieron means the temple. Okay, back to Dennis.
Ploion,
Ploion, very good. Ply is an old English word for sail on the seas. Sharon?
Prosopon.
Very good. This is a very common word. Prosopon means face. Thomas?
Simeon. Simeon. Is that right?
Good.
Simeon.
Good. That means sign. So semaphore means carrying a sign. For means carrying. Christopher means carrying Christ, okay? Christopher. And semaphore means carrying a sign. So semaphores, those flags they wave about, maybe on the deck of a ship, an aircraft carrier, they'll wave flags about. And these semaphore, these two flags will spell out letters. Okay, and then last one, John. John, my technon.
Child.
Yes.
Technon.
Okay. I should really say John, my huios, because you're no longer a technon. Okay. So there's the vocabulary. Any questions there? No. Okay. Let's try and do some exercise. What happened to our Greek exercise? I thought I had an exercise.
We've got it.
It's jumped off the thing. Let's see if I can find that. Here we go. Stop sharing. Let's see, where is it? 5. Class exercise 5. That's better. Okay. All right. I hope you can see that class exercise there up on your documents. I'll put it up on the screen as well. Well, that's not looking very good. All right. So here we go. I'll bring that down a little bit. Let's just go through this exercise together as quickly as we can so we can make do some Bible study, which is much more exciting. I'm sorry to tell you, Bible study is much more exciting than Greek, but we need a bit of Greek under our belts to understand it. So let's start with John here. You can use the vocabulary sheet. What is the meaning of the word? What is the case? In other words, is it possessive? Is it the subject? Or you can use the fancy terms. And is it singular or plural? John?
Daimonion is demon. It is the of one.
Yes. Genitive?
Not sure if it's genitive.
Yes. And singular or plural?
Singular.
Good. So it means of a demon, daimoniou. Okay, Thomas.
Ergois.
Yes.
And that ergois.
What is the dictionary definition? It's not nominative, but what is the meaning of the word the basic meaning of the word? Not the specific meaning, just the dictionary meaning. Ergon. What does ergon mean?
Work.
Work. Good. Okay. And what case is it in?
Dative plural.
Dative plural. Very good. Sharon.
Sorry, I'm taking notes.
Ployon. Good.
Ployon, yeah.
What is the dictionary meaning of the word?
The dictionary meaning is a boat,
Correct.
and it's a singular boat, and
I'm
it's
afraid it's not.
Oh, isn't it? Oh.
No. It's a plural boat.
Oh, it is too, because it's got the the omega, and then the okay. All right. So there's more than one boat. So it's boats, and they are possessive.
Correct. Good. It's of the boats. Excellent. All right. Dennis, number 4 on the list there. Euangelio. What is
Yeah, that's what I thought. Euangelio, it's singular of good news. Oh, true. Dative.
dative?
Dative. Yeah.
Very good. To or for the gospel.
Yeah.
Very good. John. Prosopon.
A face.
Face. And is it singular or plural?
It is singular.
Singular. And what case is it?
The direct and indirect object.
No. It's the subject and direct object. So nominative and accusative. It could be either. Because in neuter nouns, there's the same
I don't
ending.
know the special names.
That's okay.
And the big words.
In neuter nouns, the subject and the direct object both have the same form here. Prosopon, prosopon, prosopou, prosopo. Prosopa, prosopa, prosopone, prosopois. Okay, Thomas, semeion. What is the word's meaning in case and number? Just to be clear, while Thomas thinks about this one, I don't care if you don't know the big words for these cases. As long as you know the function, that is subject, direct object, possessive, and to or for the dative. I don't mind if you don't even use those words. You just say it means of the something or to or for the something. I'm not fussed about the big words, but you do need to understand what its function is in a sentence. So semeion, Thomas.
Sorry, I was on mute. Semeion is sign, genitive,
Yes.
plural.
Very good. Possessive plural, genitive plural of the signs. Sharon, techna.
Which will be child.
Yes.
And it will be a plural, so children.
Yes.
And it's either the subject or the direct object.
Very good. And last one, Dennis, sabatois.
Sabatois will be dative plural.
Plural. Very good.
Yeah.
Have I put this one on the vocabulary? Is that on the vocabulary? No.
Yes, it's Sabbath.
Okay, sorry about that. This is
Sabbath.
the word for Sabbath, all right? And it is Sabbaton, the dictionary form of it. So this is for the Sabbaths. So I hope I haven't confused things and put a word in the class exercise that isn't in the vocabulary, but it's a very easy word to remember because it's just a straight they've just dragged it straight out of Hebrew into Greek. Sabbath, Sabbaton. Okay, now we're not going to have time to do all of these 10 examples in class, so you can use them for some extra work for homework. Just now, here's the good thing about neuter nouns as well, okay? Even though there's one or two little differences, they will help reinforce the cases of the masculine. As you work on the neuter, for the genitive and the dative, you're reminding yourself of the masculine cases as well. So I'm going to leave this exercise 2 here. I'm not going to do it in class because we want to spend some time doing some Bible study. And instead, just do it for extra reinforcing for your homework. And here's the good thing about neuter nouns. It reinforces, helps you work with the same endings, nearly the same endings as the masculine. So if you're still struggling with the masculine ones, work hard at your neuter ones and they will reinforce it. So let's leave that exercise 2 and you can have a go at it for homework. Instead, let's have a look at some Bible study. And there is some homework. So yes, there is homework plus exercise 2. There's the homework for this week. Let's see if I put Sabbaton in there anywhere. Yes. So I'm sorry. I should really add the word Sabbaton to the vocabulary list as well. But it's one of the easiest words in Greek because it sounds exactly the same as our English, basically, and the same as the Hebrew. All right, let's have a look at Greek Advanced Bible Study again. And I'm going to get you to read for me just to give my throat a break. So, Dennis, would you mind reading this first paragraph? Tonight we're going to think about the apparent contradiction between Matthew and Luke, or Acts, about how Judas died and how our Greek helps us to spot what is happening. Dennis, if you want to lead us off with this, please.
So far, we have been learning that in studying a Bible passage or even a book, there are 3 things that we are looking for that build upon each other. 1, repeated ideas and words. 2, connections and thought flow. And 3, the original author's intention. Point 3
Okay, let me stop you there a second. Let me stop you just there a second. The value of a repeated idea or a word is that this might be the main idea, the main dominant theme of a passage or a book even. So we're looking for repeated words because they might be the main idea, but we're also looking for where some of those main repeated words change and we get a new repeated word becoming more prominent. And this is a change in the flow of the logic of the passage. But all of these 3 things here build up to what is the original author's intention? What is the original author trying to emphasize or teach or point out from this passage? So we're looking for repetitions where there are contrasts, where there's a new set of repetitions of ideas. And keep on going now, Dennis, for me.
Point 3 is perhaps the most important and what we are really looking for. You see, when we study the Bible, we are not at first looking for what this passage or verse is saying to me, but rather what God was saying to the original recipients. But sometimes we come to the Bible with our questions and concerns and needs, and this can be a problem. This can be a problem. By imposing our questions on a passage, we may miss the questions it intended to raise.
So I'm sure you have all been in the situation where you've got some big problem or question in your life and you're coming to read the Bible, and in the back of your mind you're hoping that God will help you out from this passage you're reading with this big decision or question or problem in your life. And basically, even if you can hardly help it. You're trying to read the Bible and just say, what is God saying from this passage here? But in your heart of hearts, you are thinking that God might give you a little tip somewhere along the line about how you deal with this problem. So even if that's not the case, we might come to a passage like the story about Judas's death, and the question in the back of our mind is, how did Judas die? And I know there's a bit of a discrepancy between what Matthew says and what Acts says, and we're coming with our questions to the passage instead of coming and saying, Lord, what do you want us to hear? So this can be a problem because we are trying to tell God what to tell us in the Bible instead of just listening out for what he is saying sometimes. All right, so let's have a think about this problem about Judas in Matthew 27 and Acts 1. Sharon, next paragraph, please.
The death of Judas. Matthew's and Acts accounts of the death of Judas seem to contradict each other. In Matthew, Judas hanged himself, while in Acts, Judas, falling headlong, he burst open in the middle and all his entrails gushed out. But leaving the contradiction aside for a moment, what is the author's original intention in recording the incident?
Very good. So let's ignore the contradiction. Let's forget about the contradiction and just study the Bible in this way. What is God wanting to tell us in Matthew or in Acts chapter 1? Forget about the question of the contradiction for the moment. We need to study the Bible without imposing our question on it. I once, when I was in my early 20s, went through a bit of a crisis of faith over this question. I'm thinking, listen, here's a contradiction. And every time I read this passage, I'm thinking, contradiction here, how do I deal with that? And if the Bible contradicts itself, well, one of the two is in error. And if the Bible has errors or contradictions, it can't be God's word. And so I got to this point in my Bible reading that one Christmas day, I set aside the afternoon to study the Bible over this issue. And I had probably one of the best Christmas days of my whole life studying the Bible. And what I saw was not really an answer to the contradiction, first of all. That came later. Once I started seeing, okay, what is the point that God is trying to teach in Acts chapter 1? What is the point in Matthew 27? So we're looking for these three things we talked about before, repeated ideas and words. This is where Greek helps a bit. Because we see things that sometimes our English translations obscure. We see connections and we see similar words. And sometimes we don't notice these connections in English. So let's keep on going. Who were we up to? I think we're up to Thomas. The next paragraph, please.
Matthew interrupts the story of Jesus' Roman trial to tell us of Judas's death. Why interrupt the trial to tell about Judas? Because Judas's hanging resembles Christ's death, which the apostle equated with hanging on a tree. Acts chapter 5, verse 30 and 10:39, a sign of a curse. Christ became a curse for us, but Judas was cursed by God for his own sin of betraying God's Son.
So, okay, Matthew's gospel, it seems pretty obvious what Matthew's point is. He is comparing the two deaths of Judas and Christ. There's a comparison, there's a connection between the two. They're both hanged. And we see the significance of this from the Old Testament. He who is hanged upon a tree is cursed of God, says the Old Testament. So Matthew's point is pretty, it seems to be this point. There's a comparison and a connection and a contrast between these two deaths. But what about in the book of Acts? Well, if you've got your Greek New Testament there, Acts is quite advanced Greek, okay? You won't be able to read it very much. But I want you to go and just have a look for these words in your interlinear or your Greek New Testament in these verses. John, if you could read out this paragraph, see if you can find them. As we're reading through, grab your Greek New Testament out and just scan through these verses in Acts chapter 1. But anyway, John, you can read for us this paragraph, please.
Do you want me to read the paragraph in Acts chapter 1 or?
No. Well, okay. Yes, that's a good idea. Let's read the Bible passage. That's a great idea. John, you can read Acts chapter 1 for us, please. And I'm going to suggest to you there is a really high what's the word I'm looking for? Um, high repetition of this idea of a field or a place or a lot. Okay, so John, if you wouldn't mind reading Acts chapter 1, verses um, 15 to the end in English.
I mean, yeah, I got my Greek Bible out and I realized that I don't know how to read Greek. Acts chapter 1,
Verse
starting
15.
in verse 15. Right. In those days, Peter stood up in the midst of the disciples, although the number of names was about 120, and said, Men and brethren, this scripture had to be fulfilled, which the Holy Spirit spoke before by the mouth of David concerning Judas, who became a guide to those who arrested Jesus. For he was numbered with us and obtained a part in this ministry. Now this man purchased a field with the wages of iniquity, and falling headlong, he burst open in the middle, and all his entrails gushed out. It became known to all those dwelling in Jerusalem, so that field is called in their own language Akeldama, that is, field of blood. For it is written in the book of Psalms, Let his dwelling place be desolate, and let no one live in it, and let another take his office. Therefore, of these men who had accompanied us all the time, the Lord Jesus went in and out among us, beginning from the baptism of John to that day when he was taken up from us. One of these must become a witness with us of his resurrection. And they proposed two, Joseph called Barsabas, who was surnamed Justus, and Matthias. And they prayed and said, You, O Lord, you who know the hearts of all, show which of these two you have chosen to take part in this ministry and apostleship, from which Judas by transgression fell, that he might go to his own place. And they cast their lots, and the lot fell on Matthias, and he was numbered with the 11 apostles.
Okay, good. Now, Dennis, would you read the next paragraph with all these bullet points?
Starting in Peter's speech.
Yep.
Okay. In Peter's speech in Acts 1, notice the repetition of the ideas of lot, field, and place. For he was numbered with us and obtained a part. It is kleros,
yes.
kleros, in this ministry. Now this man purchased a field with the wages of iniquity.
The Greek word for field here is korion. There are a number of Greek words for field that could be used, but he uses korion, which just means a place. Good.
So that field is called in their own language Akaldama, that is field of blood. Verse 19. Let his dwelling place be desolate. Verse 20. Show which of these two you have chosen to take part. Kleros, lot, alternatively topos, place, in which ministry. Verse 25. From which Judas by transgression fell, that he might go to his own place. Topos, 25, verse 25. They cast their lots, kleros, and their lot, kleros, fell on Matthias. Verse 26.
Good, thanks, Dennis. Now, when I was studying this as a young man, I noticed, I noticed when I started looking at the Greek that in verse 17, we had this word, kleros. Okay, now my Bible in English at that time said that he was numbered with us and obtained a part in this ministry. But actually the word kleros means a lot. And well, that links up with what they did. Here's another question we had from this chapter. Why did the apostles cast lots to decide who their replacement would be? But when you look at the Greek, you see that it's not the word part in English. In Greek, the word part is meros. But actually, the Greek uses exactly the same word that they used down at the end of the passage to cast lots, kleros. And they also use this word in verse 25. Show which of these two you have chosen to take part. Kleros. Now, your Greek Bibles that you have got that I've encouraged you to buy, they probably won't have kleros there. They will have topos. They'll have an alternative reading. Some manuscripts read kleros, and I believe kleros is actually the correct Greek reading here. But some other ones have topos. And even if it doesn't have kleros, it's still this idea of something like a field or a lot or a place. The Greek word topos means a place. This is where we get our word topographical map from, okay? A topographical map shows you places. And I started noticing as I was studying through this passage this Christmas afternoon, hey, there's a lot of references to real estate in this passage. All the way through. And I've listed 7 or 8 bullet points there of verses where it talks about fields called akeldama, which is the field of blood. You have kleros, a lot. And we still talk today about real estate lots. Before they put house numbers on a street, when they've only got blocks of dirt, they'll call it lot number 20. That's what you're buying. You're buying a block, a lot. And where does that idea come from? Well, in the Old Testament, when the children of Israel went into the land of Canaan, they divided up the land by lot. You basically threw a dice, or however they did their gambling, to see which tribes got which block of land, and they split it up further, and you divided the land up by lot. It's by casting dice. And so we still talk about lot as a plot of ground today. And I noticed bang, 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 all the way through this passage, Peter is talking real estate. And he's making a play on the word lot. In other words, lots can refer to the dice that you actually cast, or lot can refer to a piece of real estate, or lot can also mean a share of something, because when the children of Israel divided up the land of Canaan, they're dividing it up. They're all sharing this land, but they're dividing it up, and they cast lots for who gets what? Part. So it says that Judas had a lot or a part in this ministry. He was one of the 12 apostles. He had a share in this ministry. And Peter used this word lot. And what's happening here? Peter is making a sermon. He is sermonizing, and he's talking about literal blocks of ground, but he's also talking about sharing part of this ministry. And I noticed this. Okay, here's a repeated idea. Peter is really just strumming on one harp string all the way through here. So let's read the next paragraph of my sheet, and I'll explain a little bit more what I think is happening. We're back to Dennis again, please.
The whole story is making a play on the word lot. 1. Casting lots. 2. A piece of ground. Just like we still speak of real estate lots. Number 3. A share in something. In this case, the position Judas held as an apostle of Christ. Peter continues his wordplay by talking of the field Judas bought, the field of blood, and the place Judas ultimately went to, hell. Peter was making the point that Judas had decided to swap his exalted place as an apostle for a bit of real estate, a grubby little exchange financed by betraying God's Son, but that all Judas got out of it in the end was his own place in hell. Peter traced Judas' spiritual and literal fall.
Good. So there's a dominant theme here of lots and fields, but there's also this idea of Judas falling from this exalted position he had to his own place in hell. And this fall, this spiritual moral fall, is mirrored by actually Judas's death. There was a literal fall involved in Judas's death. Okay, so now we've started to see a bit of what Peter's point is. How? By looking for dominant themes or repeated contrasts, repeated ideas and words in this sermon. And this is giving us some little glimpse of the main idea that Peter's wanting to talk about, and the sort of moral, spiritual lessons he's drawing out of all this talk about Judas. And it's leading up to them literally casting lots for who they're going to replace as an apostle. Okay, so I hope you're seeing the point that I think Peter is trying to make here in his sermonizing. Okay, what's that got to do with the contradiction then? Let's come down to the last paragraph here. Sharon, if you wouldn't mind reading that out for us.
Peter is sermonizing here, drawing moral lessons from Judas' death based on literal events. Peter's point is not to break the news of Judas' death, which happened 5 weeks prior and was known to everyone in Jerusalem, so that they had given the field a nickname. Peter gives very few details of how Judas actually died. This is not his point. It is possible to harmonize Matthew and Acts in various ways. Judas hanged himself and the rope broke straight away or sometime later, and he burst open straight away or later.
Okay, so let me just unpack that paragraph a little bit here. When we read the book of Acts, we might first of all think that Peter is telling the other disciples that Judas has died. But actually, they all know Judas died because everybody knows that Judas died. It happened 5 weeks ago. You remember there's been 40 days of Jesus appearing post-resurrection to his disciples. Then the ascension has happened. 40 days after Jesus' resurrection, Jesus has gone back to heaven, and it's after this that Peter's speaking. So we're 40 days, we're looking something like 6 weeks later. Now, do the other disciples know that Judas has died? It's not as if the other disciples are looking around and say, "Oh, Peter, you know what? I'd completely forgotten about Judas. Oh, I just noticed that he's missing today, and you've come to tell us a story of how he died." No, that is not Peter's point. Peter is not breaking any news here. Everybody in the room knows what happened to Judas. Peter's point is to make a draw moral lessons from it. And actually, there needs to be something done about replacing Judas. But Peter wants to point out the moral of the story of Judas. He is not so much interested in the physical death of Judas here. That is not his point. Everybody already knows that. And not only the disciples, everybody knows about this field of blood. So if Peter's point is not to tell us how Judas died, but instead to pick out one or two little incidents or one or two little things from the literal death of Judas, the next thing I noticed that actually Peter is very vague about his description of Judas's death. Peter actually gives us very few details about how Judas died. He does not even say that it was Judas's falling here that led to his death. Judas could have been dead for 3 or 4 days before this actual fall. For example, when a body dies, it decomposes. And one of the things that happens to a dead body is that the insides of this dead body will bloat. They will expand as various decay mechanisms happen. And if you leave a dead body out on a field, on a grass field, for a week or so, it will explode because all the various things inside it build up until you have such a pressure that the body can't contain it anymore. Peter isn't actually trying to give us a timeline of events here. He is very vague about Judas. He does tell us that Judas fell, and he does tell us that Judas burst open. But he doesn't say that what caused the bursting open, whether it was the impact or something else. He doesn't tell us how Judas fell. It could have been, and it's possible to harmonize Matthew's account with Acts chapter 1. It could have been that he fell because he was hanged off something. If you're hanged where you're suspended above something, it could have been that people came and cut him down after a few days. Bear in mind that there was a holiday weekend over Passover when there is nobody going out. These are Sabbath days. They're all staying at home like the women before the Lord's resurrection. So Peter is very vague about how he talks about Judas's death. Everybody already knows. He is just picking out one or two details from Judas's death and stressing the moral that comes out of them, the field that he bought and the fact that he fell. And you could pull a moral out of the fact that he burst open too, because the Jews, and you can see this in the New Testament as well, the Jews thought about the seat of the affections as your bowels, okay? You can read about it in the KJV, Paul longing for people with his bowels. That sounds really crude and gross in our English language today. We would say, I long for you with all my heart, but Paul would say, I long for you with all my bowels, okay? This is the way they thought. Here's the seat of your affections, your gut. And Judas, he has so little human compassion and affection. Look what he has done to God's son. He has betrayed God's son. So Peter, I suggest to you, he's picking out 2 or 3 literal events from this story and sermonizing on them. He's not trying to give us a blow-by-blow, minute-by-minute account of the events of Judas's death. He doesn't need to. Everybody knows that. Why would you want to go into the gory details anyway? No, his point is to draw moral lessons out of Jesus' death. So here is how Greek helps us. Greek helps us, again, by noticing some words which get a little bit obscured in English, particularly this word kleros is mistranslated or deliberately dumbed down in in virtually all Bible translations. They just translate it as part instead of lot. And we miss the connection that Peter is trying to build. Okay, I'm jabbering on as usual. Any thoughts or comments on all of this? No? So here's how we study the Bible. We're looking to see what Peter was trying to get across. Let's put my questions in the back seat for the moment. I've got this query about Judas's death. But let's hear what Peter has to say. And to hear what Peter's point is, we need to look very closely at the actual words he uses, and we notice some of them, he's connecting them up together, these different thoughts about fields and lots and places, and he's repeating these. Okay, Peter, you're going on not so much about Judas, but about the field. You're more interested in the field than Judas. This is your main point. You do want to talk about Judas's fall, but it has a metaphorical as well as a literal significance in Peter's message here. So, yeah, our aim is to notice thought flow by connecting words together, and notice where there's contrasts as well as connections. And this is how Greek helps us in studying the Bible. We're looking more clearly at the actual words used. And we sometimes pick up these details that we lose in an English translation. Now you can notice this in an interlinear, because an interlinear will show you the actual Greek words. And as I say, Acts is very advanced Greek. Luke is very polished in his use of Greek. But even in an interlinear, you will notice if you look through that the word lots down in verse 26, they cast lots. It's exactly the same word that's used once or twice earlier in the chapter. And then you have got the sniff of a beginning of a clue as to what Peter's talking about. All right. So, any questions or comments? No? All right, let's leave it there for tonight and rest my weary voice. Dennis, would you like to close in prayer for us, please?
I think Sharon has a question.
Sharon.
Are we changing times next week?
Are we coming out of daylight savings?
On Sunday, yeah.
Wow. This always happens, you know. They don't tell you until the weekend. And then you sort of, oh. Okay, so let's have a think about this. I hope ACT changes clocks the same day as we do. They probably will. What we normally do then is we move our session to 6:30 for everybody, so that the people in Queensland aren't. At the moment, they're doing it at 6 in Queensland, and we split the difference, and we go to 6:30, so that it doesn't become so late in the evening. Does that suit everybody, or would people prefer 7? Who would?
I think 6:30 is fine.
6:30 is fine. Is that too early for anyone?
I'll squeeze it in.
Okay. How is that for you, Thomas?
It's all right. All right. It's early, but it's okay.
Okay. So, yeah, at the moment, people in Queensland have been starting at 6 up until now. And that's pretty tough, for particularly Jonathan and Dennis, coming back from work and trying to have a bite to eat before maybe doing some rushed homework. But they get an extra half an hour now, and we still don't stay too late. How is that for you, John? Is that okay for you?
Yeah, it should be fine for me.
Okay. So I'll send that out on the email. Thank you very much, Sharon, for noticing this. As I say, I never noticed it until the day before the clocks change. All right. Thank you very much. Dennis, if you'd close for us, please.
Yeah, let's pray. Father, we thank you for tonight. We're able to again study the language Greek in order to help us to understand and also to read your word in its original text and language. And we do pray that with the language that we've learned, be able to read your word and have a better understanding where we've read in English and sometimes come to have more questions and thought that that we may have seen contradictions, but it didn't. So again, Lord, we believe your word is the truth, and that there's no contradiction in the truth at all. So help us, Lord, as we during this week been busy with our daily lives, and help us be able to be diligent in our learning of the Greek vocab and grammar, Lord. So for this, we commit all of us into your hands. We are once again remembering Jono and Tim, who are not able to join us tonight. Help them to be able to catch up as well. For this, we give thanks and we pray in the name of our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen. All right. Thanks, everybody, again. And